This is the second studio hosted by the Architecture and Design Office fame. My name is David Lee, and with me is Marina Borderonay. The two of us are architects, partners at the office, and of course, hosts of the show. And today our guest is Eran Chen.
Eran is the founder of ODA Architecture, an architecture office based in New York. They also do interior design, urban design, landscape, and probably a lot more.
Yes, and anyone in New York knows this office. And so in a certain way, the conversation's a bit overdue, I feel like. But it was a real pleasure to speak with him. Of course, we talk about his upbringing. And as you'll hear, he's a very good storyteller because he has crazy stories, but also is a really good storyteller. And that ties into their work and their approach to their work. And we cover their design thinking, their office, again, stories of trying to find work when things aren't going well, landing first jobs, and the hour and 15 minutes or whatever this was went by very quickly, and I hope you guys get a lot out of it. And I will have to put in the notes the name of the Japanese artist who did the artwork behind him, because I think we asked them off the air, but I was mesmerized by it. If you're watching the video, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And I think that's it, right?
That's it.
All right, sponsors. The second studio is brought to you by Chaos. They make award-winning design and visualization tools, and they're really pushing the boundaries with AI. As we all know, AI is shaking up the architecture and design world, and Chaos is taking a responsible approach. Their tools are built to help architects, designers, and visualization specialists work faster and explore more ideas without replacing creativity. Basically, Chaos wants AI to make your imagination stronger and not take over, so you get to design with more freedom, create stunning visuals, and stay in control of your work. If you want to see what that looks like, tap the Chaos link in our show notes.
Stop juggling multiple pieces of software and struggling with design-unfriendly spreadsheets. Programma, built by designers for designers, provides an integrated suite of tools for every phase of your project, from mood boards to advanced specification tools, procurement tracking to project management. Seamlessly integrated, easily shareable, and always current, Programma reduces redundancy and minimizes costly error. Join interior design movers and shakers by starting for free at programma.design/secondstudio. Experience the difference with Programma, software built for interior design workflows. Architects, design leaders, founders redefining the industry. If you want to shape not only buildings but the businesses behind them, this is your moment. Future London Academy's Executive MBA takes you inside the boardrooms of Pentagram, Uber, Zaha Hadid Architects, and Google, where you will master finance, strategy, and operations from the people who already excel at them. Study alongside peers, transforming the industry worldwide, and do it all in just 9 intensive weeks over 1 year between London and California. Award-winning, transformative, crafted for design and architecture leaders with 15 plus years of experience. If you're ready to grow your impact, apply now by tapping the Future London Academy link in our show notes.
This is the second studio with myself, Marina, and our guest, Eran. Here we go.
I was born and grew up in Israel, and this was early 1970s. I was actually born in an Air Force base in the south of the country to a father who was a pilot, and actually grown in a kind of a working class neighborhood. Right after he left the army and we left the base, we moved into a southern city called Beersheba, and it was known at that time to be kind of a innovative architectural city in the desert, where architects have experimented mostly with social housing and sort of mass housing, etc. And so my childhood, as I remember it, or maybe my strongest memory of my childhood, was in this very modest neighborhood where our house complex consisted of 3 row houses that formed a courtyard. And I can't tell you exactly the scale, but to me as a child, it was always seemed very large in one hand, but at the same time very intimate. And all the apartments were arranged looking into the courtyard. So think about it as a single loaded corridor type of building. And every apartment had a balcony facing out. And our childhood was really unfolded in this courtyard. I would come back from school with my friends, grew up with a single mom, and she was working until about 4 or 5 o'clock. And I just spent the time with my friends at that courtyard. And I remember it as a multi-generational place of sort of experience. And around 5 o'clock, my mom would come home and call me for dinner, but she wouldn't call my name. Instead, she used to whistle. So we had a whistle. It was like, I still remember it till today. But the funny thing is that it's not just that we had a whistle. All of my friends and their parents had their own unique whistles. And every day around 5 o'clock, the courtyard would be filled with this symphony, symphony of whistles. And with this kind of enchanting sound, we knew that the day's over and it's time to go home and have dinner. And honestly, and I can't remember, I want to say I was probably 7 years old, 8 years old, something like that. And that's the most powerful memory that I have of these courtyards, the whistling moms, sort of the announcement of the whistling moms into the coming home. And to me, I didn't think about it for many years, but becoming an architect in later years, my attraction into these, what I call porous architecture and urbanism, to courtyards in particular, brought me back into this memory and thought, wow, this idea of the void that the building creates to create a pocket of interactions that is human and scale, that is inherent not only in the experience, but also sounds and views and all of your senses. Mm-hmm. That's something that really came back to a lot of our work.
And so did you know from a young age that you were going to pursue something in a creative field like architecture, or architecture specifically? How did that, come around for you?
I always knew, and it's funny because my mom was a scientist. My dad at some point was an engineer. Nobody I knew was an architect, but I always knew. And but I do remember at a very young age, maybe I was 10 years old, I started documenting the built environment with a pencil and a paper. I was very good at drawing, but I drew perspective views of different things, especially our homes. And my mom even have those sketches to show for today. I started drawing perspective of the living room with the furniture. And when I look at them today, I'm pretty shocked, not so much by the sort of our ability to capture, or my ability to capture intuitively perspective views, but the fascination with architecture at a very young age. So it was talked about, it was all around me. I always thought growing up I'll be an architect, and I guess I didn't disappoint.
Interesting. So you just knew. We might actually request, if you have pictures of those drawings, that'd be phenomenal to include in the recording. So you knew from an early age that was your path. How did you pursue it? Did you go and get a formal education, or what was the next steps into that career?
Yeah, I mean, the path in Israel is a bit different because unfortunately we all finish high school and we have to go to the army, and I spent 4 years in the army. So by the time you graduate from the army, you're already 22. And then you're like, I need to travel the world. I need to have a break. So I traveled the world for a year. And that was already the first lesson in architecture, between India and Asia and South America. I was really fascinated by the way people live and by the way their life is framed through architecture and building. Again, not so much the facades and the forms. I wasn't an expert in identifying different famous architects, etc. But it was something very emotional about the dynamicism, the dynamic between humans and a brick and a stone and planted area. So that took about a year. And then when I came back, I was already 23, I believe. And then I decided to go to an architecture school, which took 5 years. So by the time I graduated, I was quite mature, 28 years old.
Yeah, normally so where did you go to school? In the United States, you said?
No,
or
I did go to school in Jerusalem. And then the minute I graduated, literally a week after, I left the country and I moved here.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear you describe what aspects of architecture were appealing to you from a young age and then, your mid-20s, because it's interesting. Like, for young architects, I find some of them, they are architecture enthusiasts whilst they're learning architecture, but it's more like they're interested in learning how to draw floor plans, learning drafting softwares, or studying and memorizing who did what buildings,
right.
Which is nothing wrong with all of that, but it's like a very different take and lens into architecture as opposed to looking at how it impacts people.
Correct. I mean, I do think it's very dependent. And in fact, when I came into the first year of architecture school, the people surrounding me were much more knowledgeable. I was intimidated by the amount of knowledge they had about, different eras and different architectural styles, etc. I was really clueless, but I was so influenced and insected in the psychology of architecture, if you could say something
Right.
like that. The impact of the built environment on people's psyche. Maybe because of my personality, personally, I always monitored from a young age how different environments affect my mood. I mean, I done it not because I tried to do a research. It was just, I was very aware of my mood swings and when I'm super happy and depressed. And I started connecting them to where I am and found that there's correlation between those two. And I remember, today it's common to say, this is my happy place. It wasn't very common when I grew up, but I definitely had places that were happy places or not so happy places. So coming into architecture school, I feel I had a huge, not knowledge, but a huge intuition as relates to architecture scale and its impact on human experience, less so on the typical, I know so-and-so architect and he designed this and this building.
The school that you went to and the education, was it more formally focused? Was it more focused on the psychology of architecture? Was it focused on, I don't know, something else? The theory of architecture? There's like half a dozen focuses.
That's true. The school is a school for art and architecture. So it is very focused on the art world, as opposed to schools that are connected to, let's say, technology or science. This was I think one of the best, if not the best, school of art in Israel, and they had an architectural department. I think that's a very important distinction because the school approach was a lot about, I don't want to say the artistic gestures, but the concepts and ideas behind architecture in a more abstract way and less on the technical aspects of let's say how to put a building together or softwares, etc.
So what made you decide to move to New York? Like, what was appealing to you in New York?
Aside from the fact it's New York City, who doesn't want to live in New York?
Well, it's not everybody's cup of tea,
True,
right?
true.
So,
Right.
as a young foreigner, like, what was attractive to you to move there?
I mean, I think that first of all, I knew that I wanted to leave the country. I felt that the country was closing off on me. Nothing for or against. My entire family was there. I just felt it's not a place for me. And I had ambition, but believe me, nothing that is even remotely, where I am today. I didn't even dream to be that location. I just felt like I need to be out. So that's number one. In fact, the first place that I thought of going was Seattle, from all places, and I had a girlfriend back then that somehow I convinced her to come with me. And I don't know, don't ask me why, but it seems like the more, natural and beautiful place and the right stepping stone from where I grew up. And that was the plan. And then we broke up a month before I moved, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going alone to Seattle.
I mean, look, Seattle's amazing. I don't want to hate on Seattle, but Seattle and New York are different beasts. They're not the same.
You know what? If I'm gonna be by myself, I might as go to the place where everything happens at. And I'm thankful that I did because I love this place.
And so after you moved, you never left? So how long have you been in New York?
About 26 years. No, never left.
Oh, okay.
Never left.
Do you think you're ever going to leave?
That's a tricky question.
But there's the business of it, and then there's the other aspects
I'm not
of
going to
it.
get into the business aspect. I think New York is my home. It's my kids' home. It's where they grew up. They're in college right now, at least 2 out of 3, and I hope they're going to come back. So even if I would find myself in other places, New York would always be the anchor. I tell you why. I think beyond the love to the intensity and the action and the so that's the composition of bright minds that come here and land here with a purpose of exposure and exploration. It's a city of curious people and people that are restless and they always desire something. Beyond that, as an architect, I feel this is the best laboratory for urban future. It's the most dynamic city. It's the one where you can, in fact, almost build anything you want without or with very little in comparison to other cities oversight by regulations. And if you have strong ideas about urbanism and architecture within big cities, this is the best place to be.
That's wonderful. I want to ask a few questions about that because New York is obviously a very dense urban environment, and so it creates that kind of petri dish site, larger site of working within. But because it's so dense, I feel like for a lot of offices, it's really, and there's a density also of designers and architects, a lot of really good architects and designers there, that it would make it really difficult to land a project that, has all those components you described to really sink your teeth into. It's just difficult to do.
Right.
And so maybe there's actually 10 parts of this question, but maybe I can start with, how did you find success? Because I've known architects in New York who start off on their own practice and they have the aspirations to do what you've done. But it's tough, right? Because there's only so many buildings that are demolished and there's a lot of architects. So how did you get traction to doing what you do now?
Well, I guess that's the $1 million question. Or
yeah, it is. What's the answer? Give us the secret recipe.
I'll give you the recipe and then we're done. It's a tough question. I get asked a lot. And to be honest, I asked myself that question many times. And I would say, let me start by saying it is very difficult. It's very competitive. And I see how many super talented people are struggling in order to be able to build kind of a practice that is sustainable. Because it's so dynamic that the ups and downs can kill you. And when I asked myself, I came again to the conclusion that my philosophy is connected to three words. Not three words, three principles. Clear vision and relentless pursuit. And I'll explain. I mean, clear vision, quite self-explanatory. I feel like you need to know exactly where you're going. And even if you change paths throughout, every time you change the path, at least you need to convince yourself that you know where you're going, because there's no time for hesitation. And you got to have a real clarity about what you think is important and what's your priorities and what's the most important element in architecture. And this is what you'd like to concentrate on, because it's so easy to lose focus. Everybody's trying to push you away from your vision. The second thing is pursue, because a lot of people have that great vision, but they don't actively pursue that vision. What I want to say by this, every morning you wake up, you need to be in the business of pursuing that vision. It's not going to come to you. It's not going to appear on your desk. Nobody's going to, give you the commission of the next Guggenheim because you just feel like, or because you're super talented. And you have to pursue it day by day by day. And then the last and most important part of it is relentlessly. You have to be relentless. There's so many no's. There's so many obstacles. There's so much competition. There's so many conditions that would, in reasonable assessment of the situation, would tell you, listen, you got to stop. But if you're relentless, and I guess I am, you just don't give up and you keep on going in that pursuit of clarity and of vision.
Yeah, I like that. And it certainly seems to fit with the overall spirit of the people in New York City. Now I see why you're there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And it is not for everyone. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I think that you could have an amazing career like you two guys, that in a different place that is a bit more I guess, I don't know, lack of better words, maybe civilized or a little bit more.
So,
New York is New York is a constant fight, and
yeah.
you gotta have the I don't know, I guess the personality for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we were there for a number of years. We loved it, but it is grueling.
It is weird because when you live somewhere else, it's like, wow, people are not fighting here. Like, people are not trying that hard. What is wrong with people?
They also move slower. They move too slow. Get out of the way.
How did I go to visit in Seattle sometimes? My mom ended up living there. I'm always shocked by, I feel honestly like everything is in a slow motion. I crossed the street and a car 150 feet away is slowing down just to give me the path. I was like, really? There is a different pace, and I think it's healthier. Generally speaking, New York is just relentless, and it's high speed all the time.
So when you first arrived in New York, what was your first step? Did you work at an office, a series of offices?
So my beginnings were very challenging, I got to tell you. I did not go to school here. I did not come from, I mean, even my school in Israel, not one of those famous, it's a small country that is not super popular. I was older than your average, young king out of school. And so people looked at me kind of strange, like, what exactly are you looking to do? And I wasn't even educated enough in how to put a resume together or how to present myself. So I can tell you now, we can spend 2 hours just stories about how it was in the beginning, but I'll give you one where it was 1999 December. I think the market was very slow for architects in general, but I was trying to find a job. So I looked at New York Times, I looked at other ads, whatever, and I sent my resume and nobody responded. And I started to feel like there's no way. I mean, I'm probably so bad that nobody is even interested. And one guy responded to me from a New York Times ad, and it was deep in New Jersey. Now, I didn't know how big New Jersey was, to be honest. He said, why don't you come over for an interview? And I really didn't have much money, but there was no public transportation. I said, I'm going to take a cab. And I gave the cab driver the address. And that was before the days you could look at, the
phone.
at the phone, the Google. And apparently it was an hour and a half drive out of New York into some, I don't know, the west side of New Jersey. And I knew, as we were driving, I knew there's no way I could pay the guy. I had no money to pay the taxi driver. Anyways, we arrived after an hour and a half. I apologized. I gave him, I think I had $20 or whatever. That's the only thing I had. He almost killed me. And then I ended up at this guy's office, which was small. I mean, I don't know. It was like in a private house. He maybe had 10 employees, really remote. And I'm showing him my work from school and everything. And he's like scratching his head. And he says, what are you doing here? And I said, I don't know, I'm just looking for a job.
What do you mean? I want a job.
For almost like 4 months now and no response.
Wow.
I was hoping that maybe I can find a job. The guy said to me, listen, from what I see, you're extremely talented. You're a very talented designer. You have nothing to do here. Let me pick up the phone and call my good friend from college. His name is Brad Perkins. He owns a big company in New York called Perkins Eastman. And they have hundreds of employees. I'm sure he can take you. And literally, I was sitting there, and he calls Brad, and Brad says, hey, whatever, Steven, what's going on? And like, this young guy sitting in my office, and I think he's very talented. You should see him. And that was it. And then he sends me back, and he pays for my ride. Years later, I got to tell you, I sent him a huge gift, but and we're still in touch. But anyways, that led me to Perkins Eastman, and Brad did give me a job, and I started working there. And it was for me, it was a great platform to understand the way of the land, the language, the way to communicate, both verbally and architecturally. And I spent 7 amazing years there until I matured and then opened my own practice.
That is a crazy story. It's a crazy story.
It is.
When you said he was going to call up a friend, an architect friend in the city, I did not imagine it to be on the scale of Perkins Eastman. That is so silly.
Can you imagine?
That is so silly.
It's like unbelievable. And
the question is, did you apply to Perkins before, during the 4 months?
no, I didn't even know Perkins Eastman. You have to put this image in sort of in context. This guy, okay, I went to school for architecture. I traveled the world for a year. I spent 4 years in the army, and then I landed in New York City. That was the process after trying to go to Seattle. So I didn't know much about anything. But the beauty here is, we said relentless. I didn't give up, and even Perkins, I had to go through his secretary and sit by the office for a couple of days until they let me in. None of it came easy.
Wow.
But he gave me a job, and he gave me a job at a healthcare studio. And the studio leader very quickly recognized my ability to design, and he put me on all of these kind of competitions. And I started designing. Literally, I was at the office all the time. And very quickly got the attention of the design principal, Eran back then, who started assigning me to do any competition that the company had on any typology almost, that is schools, hospitals, big projects in Asia, in China. And I started traveling to these places and we started winning. And what they've very smartly recognized very quickly, this guy can design and he works nonstop. Why don't we put a team around him and let's just do competitions, because we win maybe 1 out of 2. And I ended up having a team of about 10, 12 people just doing competitions for a couple of years.
Wow.
And every time we won, I became the lead designer for the projects that we won. So I started having a very diverse experience, mostly in school, healthcare, and some mixed-use office projects in Asia. But after 4 years of that, I realized I need to do something that is a bit more local, and I decided, or I understood, that at a company like Perkins Eastman, the real power is in bringing work. You should be able to bring your own work. And that's what I've learned from the principal there, is because that's basically their main assignment is to bring work, right?
Yeah.
Be rainmakers. And I'm like, okay, let me try to do that. So I took about a year and I started doing research, and developers were the easier target, if you will. And with the backup of Eran and Brad Perkins, who really liked me, I started going to interviews to do residential projects in the city where the company didn't have much of a portfolio of. And we started getting projects. And so then they said, okay, let's make you a principal and we'll build a studio around you. So I had built a studio of about 40 people, and we started doing a lot of residential buildings in the city.
Wow.
I would really become independent. I brought the clients, we did the design. I always wanted to do both architecture and interiors, which was very strange to Brad and Eran because they had a separate interior design team. But I said, no, we have to do the interiors as well. And it's like, whatever, as long as you bring projects, we're not going to tell him what to do.
Right.
So that was a platform that really brought me into a place where I knew I could really run my own business before I even left.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. I want to kind of dive into some of those details because that trajectory within a large office like that is not the most common. And it's very rare for a person to be a talented designer, but then also be able to win work.
Right.
Like, and historically, if we think of the big three-letter offices, there's 3 partners and they're different roles. There's a designer, there's a rainmaker, as you said, and then there's whatever the other third person is.
Right.
I guess my question is, when you started to hunt for work at Perkins Eastman, do you have any idea as to what was it about you, or what did you do that allowed you to be successful in that way as well?
It's a good question. I do agree with you because now I'm running an office of about 110 people, and I consistently trying to promote this idea that we could be great designers, but also we can be good business people, at least decent business people, and we should be able to look at our clients in the eyes and be able to sell our talent, because this is what it's all about. And I think that our profession honestly has a pretty severe challenge that I think is rooted from the day where we start architecture school, where we come out of school and we feel like we're not as good or successful or powerful or convincing as the people who are working industries of money. And we're imitated by that. And I'm sorry that I'm saying it as a general comment, because it's not true for everyone, but it is true for our profession. That people who are business people or people who are money people, we're getting imitated. We feel we can't face that because we care about design and how is that lining up with the idea of business? And it's a huge mistake. And I think my advantage, maybe just because of my background, also because of my age, I didn't feel that way. I went to developers, I looked them in the eye, and I felt equal. And that feeling have allowed me to project a certain, I think, confidence on their behalf that I can get it done. And I did. But I think that this is, the ability to go in and say, I know I can get it done. I know I can do it better than others. I know I can make the budget. Don't throw me some numbers that I don't understand, because I understand them. And by the way, I understand the zoning. I understand what the Excel sheet means. I get it. And I know that you've got timeline, and you've got budget, and you need to get approval. And I can do all of this and give you better design. How many architects can look at somebody in the eye and say that with confidence? If we did, I think it would be much easier for a lot of us to be in the position of greater, or the better position around the table.
Yeah. I think that's very well said. And I also happen to agree that some of these things are rooted and begin in school. I mean, the mentality that was pretty pervasive in my experience as a student and as a kind of a part-time teacher was just a general feeling amongst the institutions that money is icky and bad,
Right.
and that we're somehow higher intellectual individuals because we care about arts and social,
Right.
cultural things, and money is an evil,
Well,
and
I
it's
mean,
just not a great.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you think about, the classes and the thing that you're being taught or you discuss in school, there is, a client component, but it's always a client from like the program perspective of the project. It's never the client as a relationship you have to win, a trust you have to establish, money you have, a conversation you have to have with them. Like none of that is ever brought to the table in school.
Right.
So it is intimidating when you graduate from school and you have to start talking about money to people when you know nothing about it.
Yeah.
Now, here's the irony, which I would bet you that everyone that we as collectively or individual admire now and in the history as a great architect or a group of architects, I can promise you that they were very good business people as well.
Yeah.
You cannot do one without the other. You can't be Frank Gehry and design the Guggenheim Museum without having that confidence and understanding. You cannot be Renzo Piano, who's going around with this poetic kind of gesture and feeling, and his the way that he articulates architecture as poetry without being a strong businessman. And definitely you can't be even Stephen Hall without it. These are elements that are required for us to be able to pursue our artistic, intellectual pursuit, and we need to understand that they're not conflicting.
Yeah. It goes back to an earlier thing that was said, and I forget who said it in this conversation, but it's a prerequisite, and it's like, I lost my train of thought now, which never happens on the show.
No, it happens all the time. Who are you kidding?
Oh, no, I know what it was. I think you remarked that there's a lot of really talented architects and designers and whatever else, but they might not get the traction, if you don't have that other capacity or they're willing to engage in that way. And I've been at offices too, where the office was super talented, but they just lacked that. And you're describing confidence and other things as well. And it didn't work,
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the business part of architecture, and I'm saying it from the perspective of running a business, is not the goal. But it's a tool. And it's an essential tool for us to be independent, an essential tool for us to stand strong behind our ideas, to be able to pursue our ideas. And it's very hard to do all of this if you don't have the backbone of the business understanding, and also the money at the end of it. I don't care what you build. You can build affordable housing or a community center or a museum. They all cost money. Somebody needs to pay for it. And people need to trust you with their money. It doesn't matter if it's institutions or private clients, that you're gonna take them through this. And you gotta have the understanding of where they're coming from in order to be able to be successful.
And now, a little break for our show sponsors.
Revit users, you have access to a powerful new capability you might not know about. Available with Revit version 2023.1 onward, Autodesk Insight is a next-generation carbon analysis tool that can help you make the leap toward low-carbon design. With only a few clicks, Insight lets you analyze, understand, and track the embodied and operational carbon impact of your design choices. You can then visualize opportunities for energy efficiency and carbon mitigation with its flexible dashboards, helping you make more sustainable and informed decisions. Check out the Insight link in our show notes to learn more. This episode of The Second Studio is brought to you by BQE Core, the all-in-one firm management software built for architects. Designed by architects for architects, Core helps you track time effortlessly, manage projects seamlessly, and get paid faster, so you can focus on design, not spreadsheets. With powerful automation and real-time insights, it's everything you need to run a smarter and more profitable firm. See how BQE Core can transform your practice by clicking the link in our show notes. Did you have a question?
No, go ahead.
Did you always know that you would have your own practice?
I was gonna ask, at what point?
Yeah.
At what point? You were running that successful studio of 40 people, right? At what point were you like, you know what? Now I need to go, on my own, open my own shop?
No, I didn't know. In fact, my life is a sequence of events that I surprised myself. And I'm saying it totally honestly. When I came to New York, I just dreamed of working. Just let me be an architect with some office and just sit there with the illusion of the fountainhead. That was my dream. And when I was at Perkins, I was quite happy. I didn't think that I need or want to. But what happened is reality started to hit. When I left Perkins, I had 2 kids and my wife was pregnant with the third. I was a principal, but honestly made no money at all. We lived in a rented 1-bedroom apartment, walk-up bedroom apartment. We were happy. I thought, and I'm telling all these people, I thought life is amazing. It's great. But I started to notice that I can't afford it. It's just simple as that. And so my intuition was not opening an office. My intuition was go speak to Brad Perkins and tell him, listen, I'm bringing my own work. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I know numbers. And I see what the revenue is and what I'm bringing, and it's just I can't live with what you're giving me. And at that point, my other side of the brain started working. And I said, you know what? And I'll tell you exactly what happened. It was a weekend, because this conversation started to happen, around the kitchen table with my wife. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Of course, the risk is tremendous. Third kid are on the way. What are we going to do? We're not going to be able to pay the rent. And we all agreed, let's not do it, let's push it. And then there was a weekend, I read the New York Times, and on the New York Times magazine cover was David Ajaya, who's now, he's got his own story, but I'm not going to get into this. But the article I didn't know about him before, but the article was about his success and his story and the way he opened his office in London and where he started and everything. And for some reason, I can't tell you exactly what inspired me in that story. I said, if David can, so can I. And that's where I decided. Then it was a month later or a month and a half later, I was already there.
Wow. Wow. So the early days when you started the office, was it as difficult as that taxi ride over to New Jersey, or did you have a bit more luck out of the gate?
Out of the gate, it was fantastic. Out of the gate was incredible because I convinced a client that I knew before to give us a very large commission for, relatively low fee, but who cares when you're like 4 people in a studio apartment on the Upper West Side. And we got a commission to design the toy building. It was a conversion and addition. Toy building is a pair of pretty beautiful buildings on Madison Square Park. And this developer that I knew bought them, and he was looking for an architect. And I told him I'm leaving, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it for half the fee, and I'll take you." And I did. And it was incredible. We very quickly hired more people. The office started growing. We had a few more commissions. We were about 16 or 17. And then the recession of 2008, the subprime recession came. And in 1 week, we lost all of our commission. This particular client with the bigger project was, the loan was from Lehman Brothers. They, of course, the loan was defaulted. He lost the project. We lost the project. And then, in sequence, all of the other smaller projects we had disappeared. And there started an era of great suffering where, you've got 16 people. So in the beginning, you take all the dimes and whatever the dollars you've made, and you put it back into paying people. And then it's gone. There was not a lot of it. And at some point, you have to let people go, which is the first time that I did it. And after people believed in me and came with me and, decided to join an up-and-coming studio, that was a heartbreaking experience. And we left with about 4 or 5 with me.
Wow.
With inability to pay the rent. So I went to the landlord. I said, "Sorry, man. Can't pay," and we agreed that one day when things are better, I'll pay him back. So he was gracious enough to let me be, and but couldn't pay salaries, and we were struggling. I mean, every day it was like, what the hell we're gonna do? Should we do like design courses, or maybe online, or maybe at some point we were like, let's open a bagel shop at the street corner. It was that bad. There was nothing, really nothing. Desert. Until one day, and I don't know if it's a miracle or whatever, but that also goes to show like maybe a bit about how ODA is kind of moving forward. One day, a friend of a friend that worked in the office told us that there's this young billionaire guy who now take advantage of this deep recession, and he bought a penthouse apartment at the Trump Tower next to the UN. He was published as like, I don't know, he paid $35 million. And he's looking for an architect to design his penthouse. And what he did is he invited 40 architects from around the world because nobody had work. So Watley Siegel and Richard Meyer and everyone you want was in that list, of course. We were not on the list. And but the friend of the friend was a consultant to the owner. And I invited him to lunch, and somehow, don't ask me why, I convinced him to let us participate on the second round. The second round was 10 architects, so they basically reduced it into 10. And the plan the way they played it out is like, we're gonna let people design, give them 2 months, they'll design whatever they design, and we'll do a 2-day series of presentation at the apartment on the Upper East Side. And I convinced him to just sneak us in. I mean, honestly, he just sneaked us in. And he said, "It's not on my dime. I'm not taking any responsibility. If you want to do it, all I can do is tell you the date, and I'm just going to allow you in." Literally like that. You have to do the work. You have to do the design. I promise you nothing. Your name is not on the list. I said, "Okay." Right. I said, "Okay." And we had only two weeks left, unlike everybody else. And in those 2 weeks, I read about this guy,
Wow.
and I looked and I saw his name is Chin Chu. He's originally from Vietnam with a very interesting family life story. His parents immigrated to New York after the war, and he grew up with like four sisters in Queens, right by the airport. And then somehow, in a miraculous way, got into Blackstone, and apparently he's a prodigy, and now he's like this biggest producer in pharma, and he's making $400 million a year. That was the story I read. And I said, we're going to design this apartment for him. And we came to the presentation. Now, think about the situation. We're sitting at the lobby, and next to us, I think, was the team from, no, escapes me, the famous interior designer team. And we're sitting, and then this guy saying, okay, now you can go up. We go up. And this guy's, he's sitting there with about 10, 15 of his family, engineers, friends, whatever. He's entourage. So who are you? And I was like, we are ODA. And he's looking like, ODA? What the hell is ODA? And I was like, I said, don't worry, you can find later. Let me present. And I'm telling you, and I'm standing there and I'm looking at him and I said, listen, Mr. Chu, I've read about your life, and I think this is a brilliant opportunity where the apartment is going to tell your life story. Because it happens that the door to your penthouse is facing east towards JFK, exactly where you grew up. And we're going to have people come in and look at the place where you grew up. And we're going to transform them from the east to the west, from the life that you had in the east to the life that you have now on the west. And we're going to do it by creating an amazing waterfall and a reflecting pool. People are going to step on the stepping stone. And as they do, they look to the east, and then they come in, and there's a tea house. And then they move into the Western world, and we're going to celebrate the collection of art that you have. And we rendered the whole thing. We planned the whole thing. It was gorgeous. And the guy looked at me, and I knew that he's going to hire us. I just knew it. Because nobody have come to him with that story. Mm-hmm. And a day after, he didn't say anything, of course. Day after, his uncle is calling me to meet me in a coffee shop on the Upper East Side. And I was already like, and this is in a situation where we have no food. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
And I come in and sitting with this guy. It's like, okay, we were impressed by your thing. What is your fee? And I did some research. I didn't know, what do you charge for something like that? And from all the research I've done, it's a pretty lucrative thing. You have a percentage of construction costs, whatever that is. I divided this by 10. By 10. And I gave him the number. And he said, don't you think it's a little too low?
If the client is saying that to you, it means a number of things.
The rest is history. In fact, the rest is that we had an agreement. The rest of the recession, we are flying private jets around the world to pick up marble from Carrera, furnitures from Berlin, art from Milan. It's just an incredible experience. We designed an apartment called The Penthouse that you can find it online. I think it was about 25,000 square foot. And we built the waterfall and the reflecting pool and the tea house, the whole thing. And that really took us through the recession.
That's another crazy story.
Wow.
I mean, there's the ups, for folks who don't have their own business, it's they don't fully comprehend, and nor should they really, the ups and downs of having one's own business. Right. But that is someone should make a movie out of that, and they can be the next Fountainhead. But instead of blowing up the building, you land a penthouse. That's really crazy. So did you end up, I'm curious, did you end up doing it for 1/10, or did you raise it a little bit at the...
I think we raised it a little bit. And what happens is as we went, we basically did it almost like a la carte. He understood that he got somebody who has no idea. And he understood the amount of efforts required. For him, it was peanuts anyways. We became his favorite muse. So... we always got enough to get by. Today, if I designed this, the fee would be like, again, 10 times. But back then it was just such a, you know, it was just a grace for us as you know, 5 people who are left and started, and a joy to be able to work and to do something that is creative and it's ambitious, and so we were super happy.
It's amazing. How excited was the team when you came back to the office and you told them we officially have the project?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I think that I remember maybe 4 or 5 occasions where I came with news to the office and everybody screamed and shouted and hugged each other and partied. You think about when we started, it was a startup. It was a startup, and people who actually stood by me have stayed for a long time. We were so excited. So when we got this commission, we were screaming and shouting. And then, of course, we went out and drank ourselves to death. There was this. Then we won a couple of, years later, we won a couple of really, really large competitions, and we were celebrating that. Today, we also get happy when we do this, but it's never the same.
Yeah, maybe thankfully that it's not quite so extreme,
Right.
hopefully.
Right. No, it's not.
I want to zoom in and talk about your design approach, and I'm sure there's many things that makes your design successful and make you also successful as a person to win work. But do you think the conceptual or storytelling aspect of your designs in that approach is the primary thing that sells the vision to people and makes your work more special, as opposed to just talking about beautiful materials and I don't know, whatever else, things that other architects might talk about?
Yeah, I think so. I think that if you look at our work and the depth of the work, and clearly we've been doing one typology for a long time, which is housing, but now it's much more diverse. It was never about a style for us. We're not necessarily selling a style or a look. It was always about authentic stories and about the element of surprise. Clients that come to us do not know what they're going to get, and that's the beauty here. Some clients like to know what they're going to get, and they look at whatever Zaha building and says, I want this, or Gary building, I want this, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And some clients are just like, I don't know what I'm going to get, but these guys surprise me, and they find ways to increase value and create something that is authentic, that it has an element of discovery. So I think that's what propels people to come to us consistently. And we now made what was intuition into philosophy, where we have a few pillars for what drives the company philosophy. The first one is that the human experience is the driving force for design, and not the function, not the form, but the human experience. Which means that every aspect of a building we design, we're not thinking just how would the building satisfy the program or the function, but what type of human experiences can generate that is unique. And I call it form follows experience as opposed to form follows function, because I think that in the modern world, or the contemporary world, the function is becoming secondary. You can do anything from anywhere. Technology can bring anything to our doorsteps. The function is not where it used to be. Cities are not built right now based on what function they're giving. I can buy jeans online. I don't need to go down to the streets. And same with produce. But the type of experience that it provides to the people who would propel them to go out and together and to meet each other, that's the leading factor. And so we ask ourselves, what is this building going to do to enhance human experience? So that's pillar number one. Pillar number two is porosity for prosperity. Porosity, as we know, is a geological term about the level of softness of a rock, and how much air bubbles are in a rock, and how much water and light can cross through a solid. And we think that porosity is the key to great urban architecture. And again, modern cities have built from quite the opposite of porosity. Extruded glass boxes. They have no porosity whatsoever. streets have designed for, for cars and efficiency, but there's no porosity in most cases. So we look for the ins and outs, the connections from indoor to outdoor, the in-between spaces, the thresholds. And in fact, look at some of your homes that you design. I have to say that I love that nature that you install in your homes. This idea of indoor, outdoor. The house is like a sponge that consistently allow people to have this experience of in between, ambiguity of indoor and outdoor. I think that's a second. And the last one has to do with the narratives, the storytelling, and that's true mostly for interior design, but also for architecture. The building must tell a story, and we always check ourselves in every given phase of the project. Does it tell the story that we want it to tell? And if it doesn't, we should rethink it.
Those are very clear, yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. And I know your studio touches on, or does rather, like architecture, interiors, landscape, and urban design. Mm-hmm. Is there a desire to do more of one or two of those things? I'm sure you're obviously very successful in the architecture space, but do you want to be doing more urban design and more landscape work?
I mean, we'd like to do. We'd like to do everything, and like everybody else, and we are doing quite a lot of master planning. Not so much in an urban scale. Okay, here's the kind of the future city, but rather for neighborhoods or series of blocks, or even now, we're doing higher hospitality projects that are traditionally seen as resorts, but we look at them as, just a little city. What is that master plan look like? So we do a lot of that. And landscape, again, the idea of landscape is that I believe biophilia and designing with landscape needs to be at the core of every design. You can't have it as an afterthought. What bothered me throughout the time is that I would design a building, and then we finish schematic ODDs, and then they bring the landscape guys.
Yeah.
Right? And then you put a planter here or there, because what else can they do? We need to think about landscape as part of our concept, and that's why we do it. We'd like to continue and be challenged. We'd like to do more typologies. We'd like to do cultural institutions and public work, but we're quite happy doing what we're doing as well.
It is kind of an odd thing that there is, generally speaking, and maybe this is more of the general public's perception about our industries, that those 4 or 5 that I mentioned are discrete, separate things. And it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts, specifically with what we do. The common distinction that's made is between architecture and interiors. And out here on the West Coast, interior designers are called designers and architects are not called designers. Right. And honestly, I find it confusing, but also very frustrating, because it's just it's not real. It's not like actually founded on any, solid grounding of why we would have these different names for different things.
Yeah, in a way we've done it to ourselves, haven't we? I mean, I think that if you look 50, 100 years back, the design architect would do everything. And as a profession, we started, and I think it's more commercially driven. We started specializing so we could, we could sell stuff as interior designers, as opposed to I'm not going to do the entire building, but I'm very good at interior design, very good at furnishing. I personally relate to a chair or a sofa. The texture on the wall is the same love and interest that I have in a master plan, and I'm fortunate to be able to do both. It's not easy, but I would say in 90% of our projects, we tell our clients we're very capable of doing the entire thing. Here are our credentials, look at what we do. And frankly, it would be a mistake not to do it under one umbrella, because the narrative needs to be one.
Yeah.
You know how many times, and I'm sure you see it also, you come up with an idea and a narrative and ideology, an ethos for a building. And then they bring a totally interior designers that come with a totally different ones. And how they live together, that to me is very weird situation.
It is.
Yeah, depending on the pairing, it could be an interesting combination.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to ask if there is a project, well, I guess which project right now is the most exciting to you in the office? Like something that maybe you can talk about that is either being wrapped up soon or that it's about to start that you're just super excited about?
There's a lot of really exciting projects, but I'll concentrate on two. One that is just completed, maybe about a year ago, and one that is we're designing, maybe three. One that is designed, one that is under construction. The one we completed that I'm so happy about is in Buenos Aires. It's a building called OLA, O-L-A, and it's a conversion of an old parking garage that was owned by the city of Buenos Aires in a prime location next to Palermo Park. Mm-hmm. Because of the way it's situated, it's right at the edge of the park, which is the most successful public space in Buenos Aires by far. But it also separates between that public park to the racetrack area and the private golf club, golf fields, which are very exclusive. So in a way, in a symbolic way, it was an empty structure that divides between exclusive and public. Anyways, the city decided that they want to do something with it. Of course, they don't have the means, so they called for a competition between architects and developers to come up with ideas in return for a long-term lease, which was very lucrative back then. When I came to see it, I realized a couple of things. First, that the structure is quite sound and amazing, and it's got high ceilings and whatever. I would never demo it if I can use it. And second, that if you go on the roof of it, even though it's kind of flat and horizontal, you can see the entire city from the roof. And the last one is that it's situated in a way that connects to dead ends of the park. And I came up with this idea that we're going to convert the building into the park itself. And by shifting forms or areas, cutting about 20% of the structure and relocating it, we've created this building that is a ramp that allows for the public to come up to the roof on one side, enjoy the view of the entire city, look down towards the golf courses and the racetracks. So in a way, I would say democratize the urban assets and then come back on the other side and connect the loop of the park. So the building became an urban park. The building was completed about a year ago. It's amazing to see what it did and the way it was received. It's a fairly simple construction building, so I can't speak into fancy facade materials or anything. It was built with modest means, already receiving endless awards. But the most rewarding thing is just going there and see what it does to the city. Super successful for the developer because it became the highest, the most expensive office space in the entire city, which is shocking because traditionally all of the office spaces were downtown in towers. This is a flat building, but now your office is within the park and it's sort of a building park situation. Yeah. It's unbelievable. So very proud of that. A project that I'm very excited about that is under construction is called The Torch, and The Torch is an experiment. It's a mega building, mega tower in Times Square on 46th Street and 8th Avenue, under construction right now, where half of the building is a hotel. It's about 1,800 key hotel. And the other half, 600 feet above, is dedicated as a vertical experience that is open to the public. Of course, you got to pay a ticket or whatever, but think of it as an observation deck on steroids, where basically people would be able to go up to the top and spiral down through a sequence of exhibition spaces and observation decks and digital and fusing reality and augmented reality, F&B, purely experiential building that would kind of dominate the skyline in Midtown. I think it's an experiment because I don't think there's anything like that was done in the world. And I think that it would probably get a lot of criticism because it's almost like making the skyline of New York a playground for adults. But to me, it's symbolizing the shift from the skyline dominated by the Fortune 500 or the billionaires of the world to something that is about human experience and how do you experience the city in a vertical sphere. So I'm super excited about that.
When is this one supposed to be completed?
So
So we can buy our
construction
tickets to come visit.
Construction started about a year ago. Foundation is done. It's now concrete is going up, so it's on the 6th floor. I would say it's about 2.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty quick.
It's so weird because like towers are, we both worked on towers a little bit in New York, and like it's weird because some of these houses that we do, they take like 3 years to build.
I know.
And meanwhile,
It's
there's a whole
insane.
tower.
I mean, in the middle of a
course.
really dense urban environment too. Like it's
Our
not.
clients are like, why does it take so long to do a house? I'm like, look, man, this is complicated, okay?
I know.
We don't have floor plates that are repeated 60 times. This is like all
That's-
one-off.
I always go back to the Empire State Building that I believe was built in like 8 months or something. So
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's all possible.
Yes. A question about your office. So I think you said you're about 110 people currently. That is I would consider a big office. 2 questions. 1, do you think it's going to grow? And 2, how do you maintain high design quality in an office of that scale? And how, are you involved in all of the projects? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to grow. Our intention or our ambition is not in necessarily growth on that level. The growth of the office reflects I think the organic growth of our exposure and my consistent ability with my team and management to maintain exactly what you said. To maintain a standard of execution and design at the same level. So every project matters and every project gets the same attention. The way that I did it is, what I like to do is to lead the design. That's what I like to do. I don't like to, and I want to manage the projects. I don't want to do the coordination. I don't want to sign the contracts. And so what I did is I basically made myself a consultant in my own office, where of course you have to use this consultant, where every project needs to seek my time consistently in order to do design reviews, where I can lead all of the teams, not design all of the projects, but lead the design of all of these projects with everybody around the table. And that's what I dedicate most of my time for. Fortunately, we don't have much of a business development mechanism, so I don't have to fly around, play golf with anybody. And projects at this point are kind of coming our way without me spending too much time on that. And then I have unbelievable principal group and managers and project directors that has been with us for a while, who are basically controlling our quality control, et cetera, in a way that it's consistent. So it is a very complex and not easy mechanism, and it's very hard to maintain that balance, but that's what we're trying to do.
That's phenomenal. I have a penultimate question, which is, you've done a lot of projects with developers of, it sounds like maybe different scales as well.
Right.
Have you ever thought about being a developer yourself?
I did, and I did it a couple of times actually. Not so much because I have this urge to build. I mean, I don't know, I can't explain it. I always want to be building something myself. And in the beginning, it was just houses. I would build houses and sell them, whatever. But also, in a sense, the ability of control and just do whatever you want. But what I found was that the time that I would have to spend doing things that I don't like are a waste of my time, and I don't want to do things I don't enjoy or like, and therefore I refrain from doing it in the future. I just think it's I don't need to do it, definitely not for the money, and I think that the urge to build, I would have to rely on others to do that. Because it just sucks a lot of time out of you that is not what I would want to do.
Yeah. No, it makes complete sense. Then the final question that we always ask on the show is, what is your favorite building? And it doesn't necessarily have to be one of your own, but it could if you wanted to do that.
That's a tricky question. It's like, it's a really
It's an unfair question.
Unfair
I
question.
I know.
100%
Yes.
Who's your favorite child?
Oh, man. Look, I think that my favorite building in New York City still is the Chrysler Building. And it's interesting because at the end, it's about grace and proportions and beauty more than about ideas, which is a bit contradicting to a lot of things that I'm saying. But New York City is a machine where the buildings themselves, to me, are always less important or interesting, and it's more about how they work together. But these buildings stand out through the test of time, and I just every time I see it, I was like, this is an amazing building. I would maybe want to design. But if I have to pick, oh my God. If I have to pick a favorite building, what do I do? I would say the Pantheon, and I'll explain why. Because the Pantheon is a building that when you come into it, you're not sure if you're inside or out. It has the huge opening on the ceiling, and it allows kind of the natural light to come in a way that surprises you and blur the line between inside and out. And I think that this feeling, the feeling in architecture of the threshold, the ambiguity, the feeling of, hold on a second, is it inside, is it outside? Maybe it's both. I think that's the most beautiful thing.
I love that.
That's a good one.
And it is a phenomenal structure. It is a phenomenal structure to be inside of or outside of, for sure.
For sure.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for making the time on a Friday midday for you. This was great, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was actually very, very pleasing and pleasure to talk to you both, and congratulations for all of your success and what you do for our profession. I thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's episode. If you want to support the show, then the best way to do that is to leave a review of us in the Apple Podcasts app or Spotify or YouTube or wherever. You can also share the show. That's a great way to spread the word. We are on Instagram. That's our main social media place. So give us a follow, comment, contribute, ask questions, DM. We have a hotline, which is 213-222-6950. So if you have questions, comments, or guest suggestions or topic suggestions, we're always looking for those. So feel free to text those to that number. And what else? We're everywhere. We have a website, secondstudiopod.com. Email is hello@secondstudiopod. We're just out there. You can find us.
Yeah, you can find us. You can go down the street and see us.
I don't want that. Beyond that, a lot of great guests coming up and more to come. Thanks for listening, and talk soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.